Welcome to GoodNight Audio. May you enjoy listening to this story. The day I married into a wealthy family was extremely grand. All the guests in the hall looked at me with admiration and awe. However, at the moment of exchanging rings, a group of police officers barged in. They held up their badges to me and said, "Miss Qin, you are suspected of involvement in a murder case. Please accompany us to the police station for investigation." It was clear that the police's tone was not one of negotiation, nor would they wait for me to complete the wedding ceremony. In an instant, the expressions of the guests who had just looked at me with admiration and awe changed immediately. My fiancé stepped forward and asked, "Officer, is there some misunderstanding? How could my wife?" Before he could finish speaking, the leading officer said, "Whether there is a misunderstanding or not will only be known after our investigation. Now, please cooperate, Miss Qin." Could I refuse to cooperate? Clearly I could not. I calmly replied with a single word, "Yes," then turned to my husband, who looked worried. "I'll be back soon." He gently hugged me and comforted me. "Don't be afraid. I'll hire a lawyer for you." As I walked out of the banquet hall with the police, I could still hear some guests gossiping. I heard that this Secretary Qin is quite a formidable character. I thought she was only good at charming men, but I didn't expect her to be so cruel as to commit murder. What else? She acts weak and fragile in front of men, but who knows what shady deeds she's done behind their backs. To be on the verge of marrying into a wealthy family, soaring to the top like a phoenix, only to turn into a mere hen in an instant, is this perhaps retribution? I don't believe it. No matter how infatuated Rong Zai is, he wouldn't marry a murderer. That's right. If he really married me, would I be able to sleep soundly? They indulged in their ridicule. Before the court could pass judgment on me, they had already presumed me to be a murderer. But this is understandable, because in their eyes I am nothing more than a pretty face who relies on men to get ahead. Everything I have now, both fame and fortune, was given to me by Rong Zai. Marrying him successfully is the greatest luck of my life. But they didn't know that from the very first day I became Rong Zai's secretary. I resolved that sooner or later I would become Mrs. Rong. In the interrogation room, after the police officer finished verifying my personal information, he began the questioning. The officer sitting opposite me took out a photograph and asked, "Do you know this person?" I looked closely at the scholarly, looking young man in the photo and nodded. "Yes, I know him. He is Ji Yunfei, a fellow student from my university." Without waiting for the police officer to ask, I added, "But we were just ordinary friends. After graduating from university, we lost contact. The police officer asked again, disbelievingly. I nodded again. "So, after graduating from university, do you know where he went?" The police officer asked. Could I not know? If I didn't know, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Of course, I couldn't say this to the police officer. I shook my head. "Have you heard any news about him?" I still shook my head. "So after graduating from university, did you contact any other old classmates?" I still shook my head. The police officer asked, Why what?" I found the question ridiculous. The police officer asked, "Why didn't you contact them?" I pursed my lips and said with a slight smile, "I hated them. No, to be precise, I resented them. Resented that they, who were clearly just like me attending the same university, openly looked down on me." Speaking of which, my resentment flared up again as I thought of what had happened during university, hating those detestable and filthy faces. They said I came from the countryside, that I was a country bumpkin. They mocked my non-standard Mandarin accent. They said my clothes were unfashionable. My dorm mates constantly complained about the smell on me, the smell of poverty. During university, my greatest dream was to graduate quickly and then get away from those rotten people. The police noticed my agitated emotions, but he calmly asked, "So Ji Yunfei was also one of the women you were involved with?" I shook my head again and said, "No, we were not in the same department, not close, just acquaintances who occasionally met at the library or cafeteria." "Is that so?" The police remained unconvinced. "What's wrong?" I asked proactively. "Did Ji Yunfei die?" The police did not expect me to be so direct, their eyes looking at me with surprise, and at the same time, not without caution. "Didn't you say I was suspected of being involved in a murder case? You've asked so many questions, all about him, so I guessed he was the deceased. Is that strange?" "It's not strange." The more the interrogator calmed down, the more he said, "However, your reaction upon hearing that you were suspected of being involved in a murder case was a bit strange. Today is my wedding day. I am Mrs. Wrong, standing beside Wrong's eye, the virtuous wife assisting the richest man in this city. Should I not possess the composure to remain unfazed, even if Mount Tai were to collapse before me? Moreover, whether I killed someone or not, the police need to investigate to find out, while I have the definitive answer. I stand tall and upright, with a clear conscience, calm as water, neither surprised nor fearful. Officer Wrong listened and couldn't help but chuckle, asking, "Does a woman of Ms. Qin's caliber and courage consider marrying a man like Mr. Wrong, who is wealthy, divorced, and has children from a previous marriage, an honor?" Indeed, police officers are different. Their words always hit the mark and are perfectly measured. I was speechless and could only use a smile to conceal my true emotions. The other party seemed indifferent to whether my heart was pierced by his words, and continued to return to the main topic. Ji Yunfei is dead. His body was found in the pillar of a pedestrian overpass. Yesterday, a large truck accidentally crashed into the bridge pillar. Construction workers discovered the white bones within the cement. The police immediately launched an investigation and confirmed the identity of the deceased. The police suddenly stood up, placing both hands on the table, leaning his head close to me. The oppressive feeling made my entire body go cold. He asked, "Do you know why the police could confirm the identity of a skeleton so quickly?" I mumbled, "How would I know that?" He held up an evidence bag and placed it in front of me, asking, "Do you recognize this?" Inside the bag was a gold commemorative medal, the size of a 1 yuan coin. The occasion for its commemoration was unimportant. What was important was that my name was engraved on it. Instantly, I felt like a deflated balloon, my body slumping back into the chair. "This belongs to you, doesn't it?" I softly replied, "Yes." I was about to say I had carelessly lost it, but the police officer seemed to read my mind and asked directly, "When did you discover it was missing?" My brain worked at maximum capacity, desperately searching for a plausible excuse, but found none. "This is the championship medal from the first North City University oratorical contest. It held immense significance and honor, marking the transition of Qin Shuyue from an unknown country girl to the celebrated goddess of North City." He stared at me intently, his eyes sharp as a torch, and asked, "Something so important was lost, and you didn't even notice?" I clenched my fists, filled with resentment. However, I showed no outward sign and smiled faintly, asking, "When did I say it was lost?" A fleeting look of triumph flashed in his eyes, quickly vanishing as if I had precisely caught it again. He asked, "Then why was your belonging found with Ji Yunfei?" I looked up and sighed softly. "I gave it to him." "You gave it to him?" "Yes, why?" He clearly didn't believe this explanation. "Would you give something so important to someone else for no reason?" I said, "Of course not for no reason." Recalling the past, I could only sigh repeatedly. My father was seriously ill that year, and I needed money, but I was just a university student. Even if I spent all my free time working part-time, tuition fees remained a colossal mountain weighing on my shoulders. I was utterly unable to bear it, so I gave that commemorative medal to Ji Yunfei in exchange for 5,000 yuan. I added, "He transferred the money to me via bank at the time. If you wish, you can still check the transaction history." The medal was made of gold weighing about 10 grams. Its market value at the time might have been less than 5,000 yuan. Moreover, with my name engraved on it, it's unlikely anyone else would buy it. Only he was willing. Because the police are suspicious, it's impossible. As far as I know, you had all sorts of suitors around you at the time. Among them were no shortage of rich second-generation heirs and successful young talents. If you were willing to sell, I'm sure many people would have bought it. Let alone 1,000 yuan, perhaps 10,000 or even 100,000 yuan, and someone would have willingly bought a commemorative medal engraved with your name. He appraised my face, but then said, "Anyway, Miss Chun, apart from your rural background, your academic achievements and appearance are both top-notch." I couldn't help but glance at him. "So, am I supposed to sell my precious belongings to those rich second-generation heirs or so, called successful young talents you mentioned? Or is it not important whether your academic achievements are top-notch, but rather that your appearance is top-notch? So, in the eyes of you police officers with your professional halos, is it natural and reasonable for women to exchange their looks for wealth?" My series of pointed questions clearly broke his interrogation rhythm. He hurriedly said, "Miss Chin, I didn't mean that. It's just that your explanation is hard to convince me. After all, According to the information the police have investigated, your living expenses were also very tight during your university years. He also needed to work part-time to earn money for his living expenses. I don't think he would have spent 5,000 yuan to buy this commemorative medal from you. Yes, I nodded. He was also a poor student like me. But he had a reason. He had to buy this commemorative medal. What reason? I unconsciously bent my thumb into my palm. The meticulously done nails, prepared for the wedding, seemed to pierce my skin. When I looked up again, my eyes were already teary. I said, because he was my boyfriend. The police were stunned. Clearly, they had not found out this information. I always thought he cut off contact because he wanted to get rid of me. I never imagined he was dead. I tried my best to hold back tears, but my tear ducts seemed to have lost control. Drop by drop they flowed down, quickly soaking my face. When I was ill, he transferred 5,000 yuan to me. My pride was too high, so I refused his help. I only hoped our relationship would be one of equal love, untainted by any financial interests. But I had no other choice. I needed money, so I gave him the commemorative medal. I promised that after I graduated from university, I would repay him with my first salary. But unfortunately, we broke up not long after graduation. What was the reason? The police officer asked. Incompatible values. The police officer frowned and asked, incompatible how? I wanted to work in a large corporation after graduation, but he wanted to take the civil service exam. Isn't that very good? Between the two of you, one is responsible for pursuing a high salary and solving financial problems, while the other is responsible for pursuing stability. Either way, there's an income. If you can do some good for the country and the people, it's a win-win situation. Isn't that a perfect combination? I wiped my tears and asked, so officer, are you planning to find a girlfriend who pursues a high salary to achieve a win-win situation? You must know better than I do what people who take the civil service exam are thinking. He hoped I would be like him, otherwise we could only break up. But I am not like him. He is only poor financially, while I am also poor spiritually. May you all have a good day. Because of poverty, I was looked down upon, belittled, and cursed by many people. I have been a victim of school bullying countless times since childhood. Because of poverty, I was born without self-confidence. Everything I have achieved required my utmost effort to grasp. Because of poverty, I lost my only relative, becoming a lonely ghost with nowhere to go, nowhere to return. Therefore, I pursue money obsessively. With the status of a fresh graduate, I work as a secretary for the chairman of the board of directors, able to receive an annual salary directly. I am highly educated, talented, and beautiful enough. I only need to work for 1 year to afford a down payment for a house in this city, where land is as precious as gold. What about him? Whether he passes the exam is one thing, and his salary after passing is another. Most importantly, he does not recognize my value as a person. He feels that the money I earn is not clean. I truly don't understand. Both of us expend labor to receive wages, so how is mine not clean? We are both wage earners, so why is my money not clean? We had a huge argument over this matter. Since then, we have never met again. Later, I tried to contact him, but I could no longer reach him. I tried to find him, but no one knew where he had gone. Later, I heard he had returned to his hometown. Speaking of which, my tears began to well up again. Different directions, different paths, we cannot seek the same goals. We were destined to have no outcome. In the interrogation room, the police stopped asking questions. Only my sobbing remained. After an unknown amount of time, someone handed me tissues. I took them, wiped my tears, and asked, "May I go see him?" The interrogating police officer shook his head indifferently. "He is now just a pile of white bones. Even if you saw him, you might not recognize him." I cried even harder. The police officer then asked, "Do you know about Ji Yunfei's family circumstances?" This, I really don't know very well, but as a girlfriend, not knowing her boyfriend's family circumstances seems a bit unreasonable. He only told me about his mother. I guessed his father had probably passed away. Therefore, I rarely asked about his family background. I only knew that he came from a poor family, yet he was neither servile nor overbearing, and strived to improve his circumstances. The police officer told me that his father was not dead, but his parents were divorced, and he had lived with his mother since childhood. His mother's health was not good, and she required medication year-round. She usually supported her son with state subsidies and by doing some handicraft work. However, on the night before Ji Yunfei's college entrance examination, Her old illness suddenly relapsed, and she passed away. At that time, Jae Yunfei was not at home because his home was quite far from the examination center. For convenience, he followed the school's unified arrangement and stayed at a motel near the examination center. After finishing the college entrance examination, he returned home only to discover that his mother had passed away. Due to the immense shock, he immediately vomited blood and collapsed on the spot. After the college entrance examination results were released, he became the only student from the county in decades to be admitted to Chengbei University. One can imagine how great an honor this was. His father appeared at this time, wanting to bask in his son's glory. However, Jae Yunfei refused, not only rejecting his father's goodwill, but also refusing the county government's award and the sponsorship from businessmen after selling the only house the mother and son owned. He bought an urn for his mother and brought her ashes directly here. This demonstrated his resolve to never return to that painful place and to never acknowledge his biological father again. The police officer summarized, "Therefore he cannot return to his hometown." Tears welled up uncontrollably, and my lips trembled. The police officer then asked, "He told you about his mother. So what did he say to you?" I pondered for a moment and replied, "He told me that his mother did not give him much money, but she gave him a great deal of love. Because my family was also a single-parent family, we were able to empathize with each other so deeply. I lost my mother at a young age and grew up relying on my father. It was also through my studies that I was able to reach this big city. What's more, my father is disabled. You cannot imagine how much ridicule and contempt I have endured since childhood, along with so many disdainful glances. This also shaped my timid and self-conscious personality. My academic achievements were the only thing I took pride in, yet they became the reason for others to envy and bully me. I thought university would be a better environment, but no matter where I went, I always encountered scumbags. Until I met Ji Yunfei, he gradually guided me, and I had nothing to be self-conscious about. He said that we cannot choose our parents or our background, but we can choose our future life through our efforts. In other words, despite having similar upbringing conditions, the fruits of our labor were entirely different. He had his own ambitions and ideals, while I only wanted to live a good life for myself. The police curiously asked, "You claim you were lovers. Do you have any proof? We have investigated thoroughly, and no one knew about your relationship, not even teachers or classmates who were close to you." I looked up and said, "We are not the type of people to show off. After we fell in love, we didn't tell anyone. So, do you have any mementos to prove your relationship? After we broke up, I angrily threw everything away. In other words, no one can prove your relationship." I retorted, "Why should I have to prove it? Could it be that because of this commemorative gold medal, you can determine that I am the one who killed him?" Of course not. Speaking of which, the police excitedly stood up, "But do you know where on his body this gold medal was found?" The policeman's voice was too loud, and I suddenly felt deflated, wanting to ask again but not daring to. The gold medal was found in his stomach. Before he died, he swallowed the gold medal into his stomach. When he was thrown into the cement, he was still alive, struggling until the cement completely hardened. So why did he swallow the gold medal into his stomach? Even if he and you had a deep affection, it would be understandable to clutch a keepsake in your hand when knowing there was no hope of survival, but he swallowed it directly into his stomach. This logic is very abnormal. I inquired, is it possible that because he was in too much pain in the cement, he wanted to swallow the gold to commit suicide, to alleviate his suffering? Nonsense. The size of the gold medal could not have caused immediate death. Furthermore, swallowing gold to cause death takes a very long time. He could suffocate in the cement within 3 minutes. Do you think he did that to alleviate his suffering? I felt my blood stop circulating properly. I looked up and met their eyes. So why do you think he swallowed the gold medal? They didn't know, and they couldn't answer. I said with a smile, because he hated me. Such a small gold medal, if discarded in the cement, even if the gold was not corroded by the cement, even if it was exposed to the sun one day, it would be very difficult to detect. Just clutching it in his hand could hardly express his resentment. Only by swallowing it into the stomach and waiting for the police to discover the body one day and for the forensic doctor to conduct an autopsy, would they carefully speculate based on his actions. Holding the golden badge in hand also made it difficult to prove that he was still alive when he was thrown into the bridge pier, only by swallowing it into the stomach, with the cement components adhering to the golden badge, along with the chemical reactions with gastric acid. Could the forensic doctor understand at first glance that he was still alive at the time? This proves that he was in extreme pain at the time, and further proves the cruelty of the perpetrator, arousing the indignation of the investigating police, compelling them to pursue the culprit relentlessly. I asked, wouldn't that be consistent with the IQ of a Tsinghua, Peking University student? As expected, the police were enraged. It was too much. So why did he resent you so deeply? At this moment, I no longer intended to maintain appearances. I tried to adjust my emotions, doing my best to calm myself down. I said, because I killed him. Just as the police were utterly astonished. My emotions erupted violently, but he deserved to die. You have all been deceived by him. The model student you investigated is merely the model student, in your imagination, an extremely fabricated one. He was a scoundrel from beginning to end, the most wicked sinner in this world. He deserved to suffer such pain, suffocating in the hardening cement. He deserved to be permanently sealed in that bridge pier, trampled by thousands and kicked by 10,000, never to be reincarnated. The model student in the eyes of the world was too outstanding. He endured poverty. He grew up in adversity. He was extremely filial to his mother. He was exceptionally intelligent, with great ambitions. He respected his teachers and elders, and was affectionate towards his friends. He was neither humble nor arrogant, not hot-tempered, understood reason, distinguished right from wrong, and possessed a compassionate and kind heart. Anyone who knew him could not find a single fault with him. Perhaps there are girls who do not wish to be in a relationship with this type of man, but no girl would fail to admire and respect him. But this was all on the surface. No one had ever seen his private self, except for me, his closest girlfriend. Every word I uttered was filled with extreme resentment. Initially, I truly couldn't help but admire him. Growing up in such circumstances had forged him into a perfect, exceptionally benevolent man. Later, he would often help me with small tasks when I needed it. After a few encounters, we grew close, and then he confessed his feelings to me. Perhaps at that time I still didn't understand what love was, but I couldn't find any reason to refuse him. We quickly confirmed our relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend, but he said that since we were both students, we should prioritize our studies and not make our relationship public for the time being. At that time, I had no strong opinions of my own, completely immersed in the care and love he showed me. After a short period of dating, we naturally became intimate. He told me his mother had passed away and that I was the most cherished person in his life. Everything started out wonderfully until he began to reveal his peculiar preferences. Then one day he acquired a camera, saying it was to capture my image. It began with ordinary daily life photos, gradually evolving into pictures in special costumes, then into nude photos, and finally into all sorts of bizarre and embarrassing poses. He not only stripped my clothes, but seemed to strip my flesh, peering into my very soul. He said these were our private secrets, and that absolutely no third party would ever know. He said that intimacy between a man and a woman was like this, that it was closeness without distance, a deep bond, and that these things were very normal, a form of romantic play between a man and a woman. Speaking of which, I couldn't help but burst into tears. He also said this was his deepest love for me, proof that he loved me. At that time, I was new to love and could not perceive this matter correctly. Later, I felt increasingly uneasy. I asked him to stop this perverse hobby. That is to say, from then on, all the past proofs of love turned into weapons to threaten me. Moreover, when he tore off his disguise, he was even more terrifying. He said any photo in the camera was enough to ruin me. Even if I reported to the police, even if the police caught him, my life would be completely ruined. I would live my whole life in the shadow of these photos, and I would make everyone laugh and scorn me. I would make my father, who had high hopes for me, stay up all night with anxiety, and I would be expelled from school. I would encounter countless difficulties in finding a job. As long as I lived on this earth for one day, I would be talked about and pointed at for one day. I had no other choice. I could only obey him all the time. My body became his plaything, and he could toy with it as he pleased. My life also completely became a puppet in his hands, to be manipulated as he wished. I covered my face with my hands, tears streaming down uncontrollably. I had thought of many ways to change all this, but every effort was in vain. The more I tried to avoid being threatened by him, the more things he had to threaten me with. I once thought of living such a miserable life forever, being his plaything forever, but I was unwilling. I tried my best to pass the college entrance examination, and I tried my best to gain recognition from others. How could I just be someone's plaything for my entire life? After much deliberation, my only option was to kill him. Saying that, I found it laughable. I had handled it so perfectly, yet fate insisted on giving him a chance to see the sun again. He had been dead for so many years, yet he could still drag me down with him. I asked uncontrollably, wasn't what I did considered self-defense? Did I deserve to be blackmailed by him with those photos for my entire life? I also reflected on myself, wondering why I was so foolish, so desperate for affection, that I fell for his deception so deeply. But just because I was foolish, naive, and easily deceived, did I deserve to endure all of this? I looked at the police officer before me, dazed and pleading, and asked, teach me, what should I have done then to escape unscathed? Can reporting to the police guarantee that my photos will not be leaked? Can the police be sure that those who have seen the photos will sympathize with me as the victim, rather than deem me despicable? I sensed empathy in the police officers' eyes as they looked at me, but they also seemed perplexed by the situation. They could bring the perpetrator to justice, but could they erase the suffering the victim had endured? I cried so hard that I almost fainted, unable to continue the interrogation, so it had to be temporarily suspended. After an unknown period, Rongzai arrived to see me, accompanied by his lawyer. I knew he would no longer hold the wedding ceremony with me, nor would he intend to save me. I asked, "You didn't expect me to do something like this, did you?" I said I didn't expect it myself, but the police kept asking, and I couldn't stand it anymore. "What has happened cannot be undone." Lawyer Sen entered and said, "Madam Rong, please do not be too discouraged. If you plead guilty quickly, you can certainly receive leniency. Women who plan murder in a situation of oppression have hope of being recognized as acting in self-defense. But the problem is that the oppression and threats are all one-sided claims from you, and the police cannot directly use them, unless you can provide evidence to prove it." He asked cautiously, "Those photos?" I sneered. "What, you still expect me to keep those photos?" The first thing I did after killing him was to smash the camera and destroy all those rotten photos. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reached the point of not realizing he wasn't completely dead. I was so panicked at the time. I should have struck him again. I should have destroyed all evidence that could identify him. Then there would not have been the outcome today. I looked resentfully at Rongzai. He had always been calm, even though the wedding was interrupted, even though his new bride was taken away by the police, even though his wife now admitted to murder, his expression remained indifferent. "My dear, please calm down. Don't worry, I will not abandon you. I will do my best to help you. I will hire the best legal team for you." He looked at me with pity and wanted to hold my hand. I pushed him away forcefully. "Is this what you want? Is this the only thing you can give me?" Rongzai asked. "What do you want?" "I want you to never remarry in your entire life. I put so much effort into you, to make you love me, to make you agree to marry me. It was difficult for me to become the well-known Madame Rong. How could I fail so miserably? You already have a son, so there's no need to worry about an heir. You can have as many women outside as you want, but Madame Rong can only be me. Do you understand? I have dedicated all my time to you. My youth has been consumed by you. For all these years, this is the only thing I have done. So my request is not unreasonable, is it?" His expression was extremely awkward. I knew it. Men don't have love or loyalty. They only know how to deceive women. "You're so foolish. You must hate me and wish you could cut ties with me immediately, right? Your wife of 10 years is a murderer. How much must the company's stock have plummeted? It's already the height of decency that you can still bring a lawyer to visit me, isn't it? But what can be done? It seems you can never escape me. Perhaps you should cultivate an image of fidelity. Instead of letting the reporters call you heartless and cruel, why not let them praise your devotion? After all, I'm the murderer, not you." I feel like I'm about to break. Rongzai seemed unwilling to speak to me further. He sighed and said, "I promise you, no matter the outcome, you will be the only woman I marry. You will forever be Mrs. Rong, fake." The next interrogation was handled by a female police officer. she said. I hope you won't get agitated by what I'm about to say. She paused for a moment, seemingly giving me time to process. The police found some photos on several dark websites. She calmly showed me the photos and asked, "Is this you?" The woman in the photos was unrecognizable. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I was on the verge of collapse. I wished I could immediately break free from my restraints and destroy those photos, but I was tied to this interrogation chair. I felt my heart constricting, as if I were about to bleed to death. "Mems Qin, please calm down." After my outburst, I was utterly exhausted. I said in a broken voice, "How could I have been so foolish?" He promised me that as long as I complied, these photos would never be leaked. "These photos can prove your statement. You had a motive for murder. Now, we need you to clearly explain the process of the crime." I looked at her in astonishment and asked, "Didn't I already confess? What else do you want to know?" Guilt is not something you can simply admit to. The police cannot take you to court based solely on your word. The time of the crime, the location, the murder weapon, the method, we need to know all of these. I let out a sigh. "So, the police have nothing concrete, yet you've already judged me as the murderer. What evidence the police have is their concern. Now, we need you to recount the events." I desperately wanted to ask what exactly they had uncovered, but I knew they would never tell me. I took a deep breath and calmly said, 8 years have passed since I escaped. I thought I was free, but fate has a cruel way of intervening. I began to recount the process of the crime. That day, he assaulted me again. I knew that if I didn't explode, I would be destroyed in silence. I threw caution to the wind and yelled, "Fine, go ahead and post the pictures. We'll go down together." Then we struggled and fought. He continued to provoke me, saying, "You're just trash. It's been like this since childhood. That old cripple isn't my real father. Who knows what kind of life the two of you have lived together all these years." He could insult me, but he was not allowed to insult my adoptive father. Speaking of which, I remembered my father again. In reality, he was not my biological father. He was merely a disabled bachelor in the village, having lost both his legs. One day, he found an abandoned newborn girl, and hope was rekindled within him. He did his utmost to raise me, sitting in his wheelchair, supporting us by weaving baskets and sunshades. He was not highly educated, but he raised me very well. When I was young and ignorant, I often resented heaven for being unfair to me, for making me born into such a family. However, when my father was gravely ill and nearing death, he revealed a secret he had kept hidden. He said he was sorry to me, that he clearly lacked the ability to raise me, yet he chose to adopt me. He said if he hadn't insisted on adopting me, perhaps parents with better conditions would have taken me in, and then I wouldn't have had to endure so much hardship with him. At that moment, I truly understood the immensity of a father's love. Though he was not adept at expressing affection, he conveyed his love to me with all his might. Ji Yunfei can scold me, but he is not allowed to scold my father. In my extreme anger, as if divinely aided, my strength suddenly increased. During the chaotic struggle, his head hit the wall, and he passed out. At that time, I was terrified and bewildered, not knowing what to do. My first reaction was to quickly delete the photos from the camera. And then what? Just as I was deleting the photos, he woke up. I was so scared. I don't know what I was thinking then. I just felt that if he fully woke up, I would be the one to die. So, while he was not yet fully conscious, I took a hammer and struck him hard on the head. After that, I didn't have time to check if he was truly dead. Instinctively, I sought to evade responsibility, contemplating how to dispose of the body. The police asked, where was the location? It was at my rented room at the time, which has since been demolished. You won't be able to find the crime scene there. The room was very close to the burial site. The overpass project had just commenced, so I took advantage of the quiet late night and buried him there. The police did not believe me and asked, "You pushed him in, right? Ji Yunfei's weight is certainly over 60 kg. Could you alone transport such a heavy corpse from your room to the location under the overpass?" The police suddenly asked seriously, "You had an accomplice, didn't you?" I hastily denied it, saying no. I committed the murder and burial alone. I had no accomplice. It was the summer 8 years ago. You and Ji Yunfei were both preparing for university graduation. It's just that he was preparing for the entrance exams first, while you had already started your internship, and the company you interned at was Rongxi Corporation. Coincidentally, That overpass project was related to Rongshi Corporation. I denied it once again. That project was indeed related to Rongshi Corporation. But think about it. In those years, which of the slightly larger projects in this city was not related to Rongshi Corporation? At that time, I was just a small intern in the finance department of Rongshi Corporation. I had never even met Mr. Rong. The police asked, "You seem very afraid of this matter being linked to Mr. Rong." "It's not fear, it's simply that he has nothing to do with it. You are not trying to leverage something from this situation based on my relationship with Mr. Rong, are you?" "Don't talk nonsense. The police are here." "It would be better if there wasn't, but even if there were, it would be useless. What man would harm his own interests for a woman? There are so many women who want to be Mrs. Wrong. He could never do something like bribing the police for me, haha, wishing you all a good day. After all, his reputation is more important than anything." The person continued to ask, "Do you have anything else to add?" "No, nothing else." "Are you sure?" "Certainly." I saw her touch the earpiece she was wearing, as if receiving instructions. Then she turned to the person next to her and said, "Print out the statement for her to sign and fingerprint." Another interrogation, this time with the male police officer from before. I asked curiously, "What's wrong with you? Why keep changing interrogators? Is it because my photo was leaked that you changed the female officer?" I said nonchalantly, at this point, "I don't care anymore. In short, even if you didn't look at it and gossip in front of me, you've already looked at it and gossiped behind my back." He paid no attention to my mockery and disdain, but calmly read out a passage. "I never thought there was anything about me worth discussing. Poverty is not a sin when humanity first began. It was extremely poor and lacked all necessities. However, our ancestors produced from necessity, created from labor, and used their tools and wisdom to gradually forge a brilliant history of civilization. Poverty is not a sin. The true sin is prejudice and indifference towards poverty. It is the disdain and contempt for the poor. People cannot choose their background, thus they cannot choose poverty or wealth, but we can choose kindness. You hold prejudice against me, and with your poor background you gossip and stir up trouble. You are the ones who need to reflect, not I. My father was very poor, but he taught me kindness, integrity, diligence, resilience, optimism, how to love, and also how to accept love. Therefore, I have never been insecure. You may have the wealth bestowed by your parents, but I have the love and strength cultivated by my father. I am very familiar with this passage. It is the speech that made me famous throughout the school that year. I believe my father is the best and most loving father in the world. His thoughts and spirit surpass many people. If it were not for his frail health binding him, I believe that with his intellect, what he could create and his influence would absolutely not be limited to just me." The police officer's eyes suddenly became serious as he asked me, "Weren't you insecure since childhood? Why does your speech say you've never been insecure?" I thought for a moment and replied, "What is the difference between a speech and reality?" The police officer said nothing, and I curiously asked, "What's wrong? Do you have any doubts about this speech?" The source is not only a tool for the author's expression, but also a vehicle for emotions and a repository for the author's thoughts. I do not believe a speech completely inconsistent with the author's reality could move so many people. Moreover, the speaker can deeply empathize with the author. He probed, asking if changing the word father to mother in the essay would make the emotional impact more intense. I have the love and strength nurtured by my mother, assuming it wasn't due to illness. Your father has a congenital disability. Although he has a defect, he does not need long-term medication and does not suffer from any painful illness. This is a draft written by Ji Yunfei, isn't it? The police officer's tone grew sterner, but my inner calm deepened. Yes, I stated calmly. My boyfriend wrote me a speech. What's the big deal? The interrogation could certainly not continue. Professor Unga's rude intrusion into the interrogation room was surely a violation of regulations. The police officers could only cautiously advise him to leave. After all, he is a towering figure in academia, and his words carry considerable weight. After an unknown period, they re-entered the interrogation room. The interrogating officer became more relaxed, holding the previous interrogation records. He asked me, "You admit to killing Ji Yunfei, don't you?" "Yes." He reiterated the entire sequence of events regarding the time, place, and murder weapon, then asked, "So the weapon was a hammer. Where is the hammer?" "It was thrown away." You probably won't find it anymore, will you? Besides the rubber mallet, were there any other weapons? I shook my head no. So, he was only injured in the head. Yes, the man nodded, taking out another file and holding it directly in front of me. However, during the autopsy, the forensic examiner discovered severe abrasion on the kneecaps of Ji Yunfei. Based on the abrasion marks, it was deduced that the victim's hands were bound and they were dragged, moreover, at a very high speed, which could not have been done by human strength. According to preliminary judgment, a vehicle was used. He asked, "Do you own a car?" The marks from binding the hands were difficult to discern due to decomposition, but the abrasion marks on the kneecaps were very clear. Who drove the vehicle and where was the dragging done? After being dragged, his flesh and blood would have been torn to shreds. Who, and by what means, erased the traces? He asked repeatedly, "Could you have done this alone?" I had nothing more to say, only stubbornly insisting, "I killed him. I will pay with my life." "Isn't that enough?" Qin Shuyue, the police officer, completely lost patience with me, slamming his hand on the table and asking, "Do you think that just because you say you killed him, you actually did? Who exactly are you taking the blame for?" I laughed maniacally. "I was in the middle of my wedding ceremony when you brought me here. If you had been just 1 minute later, I would have already become the noble Mrs. Wrong. And yet, you keep suspecting me of confessing for someone else. Why would I confess for someone else? Why would I give up a life of wealth and glory to become a murderer? You said I was suspected of murder and brought me here. It was difficult for you to get me to admit to the murder. And now you're suspecting me of confessing for someone else. If I were confessing for someone else, how would you have initially identified me as the culprit? Was it just based on a medal that I was considered a suspect? The police said anyone connected to the case could be considered a suspect. The police inviting you to assist with the investigation is their right, but cooperating with the police is your obligation. But you kept lying, obstructing the police investigation, which is a crime. I know the police have an answer in their hearts, but they dare not say it because they lack evidence. Is it worth it? Even if you were extremely lacking in money and material possessions during your upbringing, but is it to the extent that you would throw away your life for so-called fame and fortune? The police showed me another file. Just 3 hours ago, the police received 3 reports. They all accused Mr. Wrong's eye of taking private photos of them during their interactions and using them for blackmail, forcing them to comply for a long time. He asked, "Miss Qin, is a man like that worth confessing for?" "Not worthy, of course, not worthy. But what can be done? I am about to become Mrs. Wrong. I have endured by his side for 10 years, and I am about to reap the fruits of victory." I sighed heavily. Can it just be like this? Someone dies, someone confesses, someone loses their life. Isn't that enough? Wrong's eye is so rich and knows so many powerful officials. Could it be that just for taking a few private photos and harming a few lives, he must be put to death? He promised me that I would forever be Mrs. Wrong, and even if I died, he would not marry another woman. The police officers looked at each other, disbelievingly asking, "What are you talking about? You are someone who overcame millions to pass the college entrance examination, a high-level talent selected by the state. How can you say such things? According to the law, everyone is equal. Haven't you studied that? You clearly could have had a better life. Why are you stubbornly relying on men? Are you worthy of the foster father who worked hard to raise you? Are you worthy of the teachers who guided you on your academic path? Not worthy. I have wronged everyone." I lowered my head. "Yes, that's right. I am confessing for Wrong's eye. But do you dare to investigate him? Why should I rely on him? Don't you already have the answer in your hearts? You are a young woman who grew up in hardship, relying on education to reach the big city. Eventually, you got to see the so-called urban prosperity and increasingly felt your own shortcomings. The academic achievements you once prided yourself on have now become merely the title of a provincial scholar. The former, you always held your head high in front of friends, daring to say grand pronouncements. You and I compare parents, I and you compare tomorrow. As if now you have discovered that there are people who are not only smarter than you, achieve better than you, but are also more beautiful and wealthier than you. Pride made you increasingly sensitive and insecure. You tried your best, only to find that many things could not be obtained through effort alone. You forced yourself to accept the reality and encouraged yourself not to give up, not to be discouraged. to persevere and adapt, thinking that sooner or later you would achieve success. But at this very moment, your only relative, after years of overwork, fell ill, was hospitalized with cancer, and required a huge sum for medical expenses. The house was sold, the land was sold, and all possible loans from friends and relatives were taken. Yet the exorbitant medical fees remained like an unfillable abyss. At this time, an extremely wealthy man appeared before you, saying he could help you. He made no demands, but you knew clearly in your heart that this was a transaction. Just now, you were determined like a soldier about to go into battle. That man was very gentle. He could give you money, and he could give you affection. The only thing he could not give was status, because he was already married with children. Initially, you only wanted his affection. Gradually, you began to crave his love, and then you became immersed in that love. Afterward, he could, in the name of love, make you do many, many shameful things. Gradually, she no longer considered it shameful. Later, her father learned the truth, understanding the origin of that large sum of hundreds of millions. He hated himself, feeling that he had implicated her. His illness had caused her to lose herself, so he decided to use his life to awaken her. And then she began to think that she did not want to be a mistress or a lover anymore. She yearned to end this shameful relationship. She proposed that the medical expenses be considered a loan from him, and she would repay both principal and interest after graduation. She begged him not to look for her anymore. At this point, his true nature was revealed. The love of the past turned into threats. She was terrified, feeling her life was ruined. She had fallen into a deep abyss from which she could not climb out. She once thought that if she endured it, he would eventually let her go when he grew tired of her. But she never imagined that the male god she secretly admired would come to rescue her. He was so brilliant, admired by countless girls, and she was no exception. But she was insecure and dared not say anything, only able to watch him from afar in the shadows. She walked the paths he had walked, read the books he had read, and engraved his every word into her heart. She carefully kept the napkin he casually handed her, once yearning to become like him in the future. The moment she accepted the devil's gift, she knew she had lost the way to love him. Therefore, when he lent her 5,000 yuan to resolve her urgent crisis, her heart pounded, and her soul longed to fly to him immediately, but her body betrayed her. She regretted it, shedding tears every night, but lacked the strength to break free or call for help. Although she said nothing, he seemed to have sensed something. He asked if she was facing any difficulties, and if she needed help. He encouraged her, telling her not to fear any difficulties, and to face them bravely. He would help her. Many people would help her, but she was afraid that if he knew the truth, he would despise her. Helping her, she was so shameless, so despicable, even lewd. She cried and asked him why he was so good to her. He asked back, confused and surprised, shouldn't people help each other? She seemed to regain hope. She decided to resist. And then the devil came to her rented room, calling her a slut, degrading her character, and even cursing her recently deceased father. She was beaten to the point of crawling on the ground. With no strength to resist, she thought it would be better to just die like this. But at the critical moment, he descended from the heavens, wanting to save her, like a brave knight fighting the devil. But she could only watch as he was repeatedly struck on the head with a hammer by the devil, his blood splashing onto her face, still warm. The devil asked her, "You dare to defy me like this? Is it because of him?" It was then that she realized that he had been treated so cruelly because of her. She began to kowtow, banging her head until blood flowed profusely, begging the devil to spare him. She said she would do whatever he wanted, as long as he spared him, and so he became even more brutal. He had her hands tied, put him in a car, and dragged him around and around. She watched him transform from a human into a bloody mess, and then she went mad. The shock was so great that all the blood in her body seemed to rush to her clothes. Finally, she fainted. When she woke up, everything had been cleaned up. Someone reported to the devil that not far away there was an overpass. Throwing things in there would be unnoticeable. She looked up, meeting the gaze of the demon, and felt that if she weren't a little colder, she too would be thrown in there. Thus, she began to confess, to blaspheme her secret love, carefully hidden in the most vicious way. She claimed he had clung to her, and fearing the demon wouldn't believe her, she volunteered to bury the body. She personally carried that mangled corpse and threw it into the bridge pillar. In the process of disposing of the body, she completed her transformation from innocence to depravity. She buried her most precious possession, a gold medal commemorating her achievements, with him in the cement. After all, this was their common ground and the beginning of their empathy. She showed him her speech without reservation, and he generously offered his suggestions. He said it wasn't about being disabled, but about a painful illness, a persistent ache like maggots in the bone, present at all times. He said her growth was not due to low self-esteem, but on the contrary to self-reliance. Only by being completely self-reliant could she reach this beautiful school. Of course, she didn't think of these things then. She thought that one day, if he could see the sun again, even if his body had decomposed, there would still be something to help the police quickly identify him. But how could she have known that, at that time, he was not yet dead? He watched her push him to his death. How desperate he must have been then, and how full of hatred. I don't want to recount it myself. If all the words I just spoke were in the first person, how much pain would I be in? I didn't want to cry, but facing this kind of betrayal, who could hold back their tears? I laughed and cried, then cried and laughed. I told the police, the deceased is Rong Zai, and the body is mine to bury. It was I who arranged for the bridge pillar to be deliberately broken on our wedding day, and it was I who arranged for the report to be made at the crucial moment. I still have a lot of evidence of Rong Zai's crimes. I couldn't help but let out a chilling laugh. I want Rong Zai to be sentenced to death. Can you bring him to justice? Can you withstand the pressure from his backing forces, or will you be swayed by his affection? I forcefully wiped away my tears, my hatred threatening to explode from my body. I hid beside him, using myself as bait to win his heart, to become his slave, solely in hopes of finding evidence of his crimes. Countless times I wanted to report him, but unfortunately, each time before I could act, I discovered him laughing and chatting with this high official, or jovially conversing with that dignitary. He is a vast, dark net, obscuring any glimmer of light. I meticulously planned for years, only able to choose that day of widespread attention. For you to arrest me, I could only lower the status of Ji Yinfei, forcing his teachers, classmates, and friends to speak out. I could only use this self-destructive method to make him lower his guard, to make him actively fall into the trap, thereby creating an opportunity for your police to arrest him. With the case unfolding in such a manner, who wouldn't admire me? Afterward, Rong Zai was arrested and investigated. The police obtained whatever they wanted to investigate. No matter how he struggled, he could not escape. Moreover, he was responsible for more than just the life of Ji Yinfei. As long as the police diligently investigate, all his crimes will be brought to light. To prolong his life, each time he was about to be sentenced to death, he would confess to another murder, repeating this cycle, allowing him to live for a few more years. However, before I was released from prison, he was still executed. The one who arranged my release from prison was Rong Zai's ex-wife. In this earth-shattering scheme, she was ultimately the greatest beneficiary. Much of Rong Zai's assets were linked to illegal activities and were confiscated, but a significant amount was still inherited by his son. She generously gave me a check for 20 million, saying, "You've worked hard all these years, this is what you deserve." I took it, glanced at it, and asked, "Has the young master come of age?" She replied happily, "Yes, he'll soon be able to achieve great things." I returned the check to her, saying, "Then you should keep this yourself. After all, your son no longer needs your guardianship, but he needs my help. Only I have the ability to help him succeed in the business world. Don't forget, I am Rong Zai's legal wife, and also the legal stepmother of your son. I only committed a crime, but I was not deprived of my inheritance rights. Everything he has is our joint property, but it has nothing to do with you." She wasn't very intelligent and had no idea that my advice for her to divorce back then was also a move in this game. I promised never to have children with Rong Zai, so her son would be his sole heir. Although she didn't get the man's love, she could have all of his fortune. I said, "Rong Zai deserved to die, but you are no better. Some women have nothing, so they pursue fame and fortune, relying on men. But you, with everything in your hands, still didn't dare to leave Rong Zai. Your indulgence allowed him to harm those innocent girls time and time again. Your compliance made him think he could manipulate all women in the same way." As I spoke, I stood up. She had to look up at me, her eyes filled with fear. I made her look down at me, thinking who she was. Your Majesty in a palace drama, as long as other women do not bear children, your position is unshakable. The best gift parents can give their children is not wealth, but education. You allowed Rongzai to take from the palaces of so many women, so from this moment on, your son is no longer your son. It is said that the teachers and students of Chengbei University held a solemn funeral for Jie Yunfei, raising funds to bury him beside his mother. He once fought with all his might, yearning to settle in this city. Although his great ambitions were not yet realized, he had, after all, settled here completely. I came to pay my respects to him. Besides saying I'm sorry, I don't know what else I could say. Yet, deep down, I still believe he was at fault. The law may give offenders repeated opportunities to repent, but villains never give good people even a single chance. Ji Yunfei was too good, so good that it made people envious. It seemed only by taking him away would heaven allow others to raise their heads. I apologize to you, Ji Yunfei. 10 years ago, I took advantage of you once. 10 years later, I am taking advantage of you once more. The end.